Okay, thank you. Welcome everyone to our latest live stream, Monday, June 1st. Take a moment to like, share, subscribe. And at this time, I'd like to share the Duty to Disobey trailer.
I had a battalion commander come to me and she said, "Dear God, we're killing our own soldiers."
We gather today to honor the incredible service members.
We owe you our thanks. We owe you our respect. And we owe you our freedom.
Just as we have gathered before to remember those who served, those who fought, and those who gave their last full measure of devotion for our country.
According to the Associated Press, the Pentagon is going to require vaccines for all service members.
I'm asking the Defense Department to look into how and when they will add COVID-19 to the list of vaccinations our armed forces must get.
The military was ordering service members to take a shot that they could not lawfully order them to take.
Are you choosing to be non-compliant? Get on the floor! Get on the floor!
Leaders did everything legal or illegal within their power to coerce and influence their service members to get the shot.
I'll never forget, I received a phone call from a mother whose son was a Marine at 29 Palms, and she told me her son and 9 other Marines were being held in confinement in the brig until they got vaccinated.
If you don't do what they tell you to do, they will ostracize you. They will destroy your life.
Stop resisting or you will get tased!
They threatened me with Leavenworth imprisonment. They banned me from all Army Public Health Center facilities for 413 days.
I counted over 140 days where I was put into isolation.
Once it becomes normalized in the military, it often very quickly finds its way into the civilian population, as we saw with the COVID mandate.
The effects extend well beyond just those in uniform, and the impact is really on the entire nation.
8,000 well-trained men and women were fired.
I lost my income. I lost my ability to feed my family.
I mean, I'm being told you're getting dishonorably discharged.
And if you get dishonorable, you lose everything. You can't get certain jobs as a civilian. It follows you for life.
You cannot mandate an experimental medical product. You cannot mandate that on military members.
In my entire medical career prior to this, I had never seen a young person with a stroke. I had never seen someone have a massive clot without provocation.
We were in great shape. We were doing very well. But then as soon after the vax is when my health went downhill.
When people celebrate all the freedoms that the military gets to grant this country, when the military's freedoms and really the country's freedoms are actually being taken away.
Why was the vaccine mandate unlawful? How come the Secretary of War is telling us that the vaccine mandate was unlawful?
We all know that the previous administration issued unlawful orders on mandatory vaccines on an experimental vaccine, COVID-19. You know it, we know it.
You are taught that you have a duty to disobey unlawful orders.
You know, they postulated that we're going to have back pay for members that were kicked out. They're inviting these warriors back into service.
And that was huge. And I was so happy to hear that. But that does nothing for the institution itself.
What I have understood from people in the military is that it has not been made easy and that it really still needs to be done on an individual basis.
We haven't stopped in 4 years when everybody was ignoring us, and we're not going to stop for another 4, 14, or 40 years.
We are at a critical juncture, and the soul of this nation is at stake.
When we talk about orders that are unlawful, now there is a duty to disobey.
It's time for coffee city.
All right, welcome back, everyone. Excuse me. Thank you for tuning in. We have a very special show today, and let's bring Cozy back up. What is happening? Cozy, come up. Oh, I don't know what's happening. I'm gonna have to kick Cozy out. Cozy, come back in. All right, everyone. My name is Rosangel Pérez. Welcome to Cafecito Break, the New York Freedom Fighters edition, which we host every Monday live 8 p.m. Eastern Time with yours truly, Rosangel Pérez, one of the Pérez sisters of Cafecito Break, and my brothers, Mark for NY, and Cozy, who hopefully will pop in any second now. And at this time, I'd like to welcome our special guest, John Delarm, who will be talking to us about this very, very significant topic. But hold that thought real quick. I forgot to pass it to Mark to have his introduction.
Hello, fellow freedom-loving Americans. Mark for NY here, former City Council, State Assembly, U.S. Senate candidate in the great state of New York, or used to be great state. The Knicks are in the playoffs, the NBA Finals. I'm wearing my Knicks jersey. But I know it's a very important topic today, but Cozy texted me that it says you permanently removed him somehow. I don't know. We got technical difficulties all the time with this show. We're constantly shadow banned and censored, but we keep it moving anyway. A very important topic, Duty to Disobey, the movie, affected a lot of service members and a lot of people in general with this unlawful mandate. And I'm just going to say one thing really quick before I pass it to our special guest. Duty to Disobey does not just go for service members. This should have been across the board in every profession. I said it in my speeches in New York constantly. Just say no. That's what it comes down to. If everyone said no, then we wouldn't have people who are forced to take the shot and have all these health issues. Everyone was worried about themselves individually losing their jobs, and everybody complied. That's the problem. We have to stand united and tell these people to screw themselves. If anything like this ever happens again, we got to tell them no, and that's the end of the story. And not just that, but I told the police officers that were arresting people for not, the vaccine passports. I literally called them Nazis, and I'm a back the blue person, but Nazis were just following orders. I used the analogy. Just following orders is not okay. And that goes for the nurses that were putting people on ventilators, even though they knew ventilators were killing them. That goes across the board. If something is wrong, just doing your job is not an excuse. You are just as evil as the people giving the orders if you comply. And with that being said, I'll pass it on to our special guest, John. Thank you for joining us on this very special episode and very important topic.
Welcome, John.
All right. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. So I was a Sergeant First Class in the United States Army. I joined back in December of 2004. I served approximately 17 years and 10 months of service before I was illegally kicked out over the COVID-19 mandate. I left service November of 2022. I should have been retired in 24. But I'm still not retired, and I'm still not back in service, which I'm not trying to be. And Mark, just so you know, I was driving a semi for probably close to almost 2 years.
Nice. So you know the struggle and the perks of it, but it's beautiful to drive across the country, but sleeping in the truck and all that stuff, there's pros and cons to it. But yeah, with now I have family in the military, and I know that vaccines and things are, when you're going overseas, you're required to take certain things. But with this, since it's experimental, that's the reason why it's illegal, I guess. Or could you elaborate on that?
Right.
Or should have been illegal?
Well, exactly. So the mandate did came out, and the mandate from General Austin came out 24 August of 2021. And it specifically said that you have to take an approved, Pfizer vaccine. And the only approved Pfizer vaccine at the time was called Comirnaty. However, there was no Comirnaty in the United States. And if you went to the CDC website, there's something called the IIS, which is Information Immunization System, on the CDC website. And if you go through that website, it actually says on there that there's only EUA products in the United States, I'm paraphrasing, and that Comirnaty would not be being made for several months. I have evidence that shows that Comirnaty still wasn't in the United States of January of 2022. And the military itself was violating U.S. Code, or it's 10 U.S. Code 1107 Alpha, which covers emergency use products, which covers the EUA product from Pfizer. And it basically says that you cannot force a service member to take an EUA product unless the president signs a waiver, which he never did. They are also violating their, and I'm only speaking for the Army in this case, but they violated AR 600-20, AR 40-562, and then as far as the DoD, ultimately they violated DoD instruction 6200.02, violating that EUA specific law. And even though the Secretary of War now came out and stated that they, the mandate was unlawful as implemented, is still incorrect. They're still covering for themselves. So saying it's unlawful is not the same as saying it's illegal. Unlawful is saying they broke their own policy, and illegal says they violated an actual current law, which they did violate. They violated U.S. Code 1107 Alpha, which is a federal law. So it's actually illegal, not unlawful. And that's a lot of misconceptions that's going around, because he says unlawful. So in the, for the PR, it makes it look like they're doing something when actually they're trying to cover up the crime.
Okay. Before we continue, what I'd like, if it's okay with you, John, I would like to go back a little bit in time and set the stage to refresh people's memory. How it's what was that setting like when this was unfolding, when you were there specifically, and you have all of these years in the military, about immunizations, because you've had to have gotten them in the military, and the whatever vaccinations they are presenting. And one of the big things is this was not exactly a vaccine. So
right.
What was the setting like in those times? And everyone, this is Cozy. He got kicked out. This happens every Monday for some reason. But Cozy, after he answers that question, you'll introduce yourself, and if that's okay. So John, if you could walk us back to what that mood was like, because we were covering, obviously, New York. Everybody is glued to the screen, paying attention to the latest mandate, to how many people were passing away, to how the country was taking steps to secure our safety. And then when it all focused in on the military, a lot of us were shocked at the direction this took.
Yeah, so I guess I'll start with real briefly, I guess pre-COVID, and I'll start with my time in the 82nd Airborne Division. I was there for about 12 years, but there's something called a global response force, and basically you can deploy anywhere in the world. You're on like a 4-hour recall, and anywhere in the world you can be there in like 8 hours, maybe 12 if I remember correctly. It's been a while. However, when you were prepping for this global response force, you had to do a bunch of things, legal things, medical things, whatever. But one of the things that we're kind of talking about are vaccines. And so you can go anywhere in the world and get deployed. So you basically have to go across and get your standard vaccine. So, you're getting an anthrax shot, you're getting multiple other shots, Tdap and whatever else they have. But basically you go into your medical and they just check your files and they say, oh, you need a vaccine. And then they give you a list, and then those are the vaccines you're getting. and you line up, and you roll your sleeve up, and you sit down, and they stick you in the arm, and they do your other arm, and however many you're getting that day, and then you're done, you're good, and now you're covered. I believe it was for a 3-month period while you're on this global response force, and then it rotates into another brigade or whatever. So and that's just business as usual. A lot of individuals, if you're part of special forces, you're probably doing that stuff. If you're getting deployed, you're on orders, you're going through medical, getting your vaccines. I pretty much got every vaccine that you're supposed to get in the military, no problem. Okay, this is what I got to do it. And then of course, we fast forward and we get to like lockdown stage. And I was actually stationed at Fort Jackson, South Carolina, as a drill sergeant. And so I was down there, and you're locked down. So I was at home a lot of times. They rotate a couple drills to watch the soldiers for a while, and then go back home, go watch the soldiers, go back home. So in this case, we had a lot of time off, and so with what was going on in the world, it was more of just kind of researching, looking at things, seeing what's going on. And then, they're doing Operation Warp Speed, talking about vaccines, I get pushed to, I come down on orders. I go to Fort Bliss, Texas, down there in, El Paso area. And, I'm still doing a little bit of research here and there, because my research really started during lockdowns. And now I'm just like, we're all living it. We're all into it. So I'm pretty sure a lot of individuals did the same. They start talking about vaccine. Like, we got a vaccine coming out. And so, I'm getting closer to retirement. So, I'm a little worried. I'm hearing like Dr. Malone talking about, the vaccine, all this. And so I'm doing my research. I realize, okay, it's going to take like 10 years for a vaccine to come out. So, for an approval. So I don't have to worry about anything. What am I worried about, right? I'll be retired. All of a sudden, and, real quick, is there any questions on that, or did I hit what you needed? Okay. And then all of a sudden, 21 August, it was 23 August of 21, they approved the Comirnaty from Pfizer. And so that was the approved vaccine. I was like, oh man. So I started doing research into this, like what's going on, right? And then the same day, on the 23rd of August, they revoked the approval. I have documentation on this. I did a video on this, but they approved it and then they revoked it. And so the reason why they revoked it is because in the United States, there's nothing but emergency use authorized products. And so if they would have kept the approval and didn't revoke it, they would have had to take all these EUA products and destroy them, and then bring in all the approved products and send them into the United States for people to actually use approved products. Well, the start marketing date for Comirnaty was like October of 21. So it wasn't even close. So they revoked it, and then they kept all the EUAs, there. And then obviously on the news media, they're lying to everybody. Oh, well, kind of. They're just not telling the full truth, right? The vaccine's approved. They never told you it was revoked, right? They're not doing their job. And so, fast forward a little bit, just one day, I guess. On the 24th of August, 21, General Austin came out with his memo saying you have to take the approved vaccine. It was like hand in hand. Approved, revoked, take the approved vaccine. And I was like, okay. Well, so there was a little bit of time where I had about 7 days, right? From the 24th to the 31st of August. It was where I was doing a lot of research. Well, come to find out, I read an article from Dr. Malone saying that they pulled a bait and switch, right? So the bait and switch is basically what I just said. They revoked the thing, and all the vaccines are EUA, and they're saying it's approved and it's not. So bait and switch. And so, and then I'm finding out like this might not be a vaccine, it's gene therapy. I find out that the definition of vaccine was changed twice within the CDC and FDA. However, the military definition of vaccine has not changed. It remains the same, right? It's supposed to be off the top of my head, a positive immune response, somewhere along those lines, right? The current definition for the FDA is a immune response. They don't care if it's positive or negative, right? And they did that so they can sneak this in as a vaccine, which it's not. And so I did all my research and checking things out. The 31st of August, 2021, which the 31st is my birthday. So, thanks for my birthday present. They were trying to vaccinate the entire brigade. We were getting ready to go to a training center, which is NTC, which is in California. It's a national training center down there. And for Fort Irwin, California. And so, their thing was like, oh, we got to vaccinate everybody for, the safety of everybody or whatever, the health of the force before we go to Fort Irwin training environment. Like, okay. And so, on the 31st of August, my birthday, they basically formed us up in this entire brigade. So I have the PowerPoint. It's called a CONOP, a concept of operations. But this lays out how many soldiers were there to get vaccinated. So you're talking in one brigade, you're talking 1,800 soldiers that did not want to get vaccinated, that were being told they have to get vaccinated at this time. And you got to remember, before the mandate, there's a few soldiers, right? Commanders, other officers, some enlisted, went out and got the vaccine, right? Because they believed in it, or they're just like, oh, it's going to happen anyways, might as well just get it. A lot of individuals, I want to go on leave, so I'm going to get vaccinated, or whatever their reasons were. But in this one brigade, there's 1,800 soldiers that said no, right? But on that day, the 31st of August, 2021, they were lied to, coerced, and told to get vaccinated. And so we all formed up. First sergeant got accountability. He brought us inside, to our little group. And then our battalion commander came out and read a policy letter or some sort of letter from the brigade commander saying, this is exactly what it started with. I don't remember the whole letter because I tried to get a copy of the letter, but they obviously wouldn't give it to me. It started with, you're about to receive the Cominarty approved COVID-19 vaccine. Exactly what it said, right? And then our battalion commander stopped and he looked and he said, oh, I wonder what Cominarty is. And then he kept reading. And the last thing I remember is they said, if you don't get this vaccine, you're going to get, Uniform Code of Military Justice, some sort of punishment under that. And then, basically he was reading side effects. One of the side effects was death. And I'm like, yeah, this is awesome. So that was kind of that. And then they started handing out documentation and they're like, okay, fill this out, sign this, sign that. And so, some of the documentation on there was a DH form. It was, I believe it was a 207. Let's see if I can see. All right. Yeah. DHA form 207. All right. It was August of 21. The form is the COVID-19 vaccine screening and immunization document. Right. And it's basically a form where if you sign it, like anybody that goes gets a vaccine, you're going to sign documentation saying you understand it, saying like, hey, I don't have any issues getting a vaccine. I won't pass out, all this stuff. I'm not pregnant, blah, blah, blah. It's that form. But on block 6 of that form, it specifically said acknowledgement. And then it says, I have read or had explained to me the information in the coronavirus vaccine emergency use authorization EUA fact sheet. So basically saying that you're signing a document saying that you're about to take an EUA product. So they just lied to you. And now they're having you sign something saying you understand what you're doing. So that way later on, you can't do anything about it. Well, they lined us up. Same process. You pull your arm up and you start getting shots, right? Soldiers were asking, can I see the vials so I could verify what it is? No, it's the approved vaccine. You're good. Keep going. Right. So these things were happening. Right. And then obviously we got counseled afterwards. Our commanders counseled us that we were, horrible soldiers and refusing the vaccine. These soldiers were literally told that they're going to be homeless. You're going to get kicked out of the military. You're going to lose all your benefits. They're just being told all these horrible things by officers, which are majors. The lieutenant colonel was going around trying to get people to get vaccinated. The sergeant major. It was pretty ridiculous during that time.
That's insane stuff. But Cozy, welcome back from a permanent ban on the show. Good to have you back. We got about 3 minutes left in the Brooklyn Free Speech program. So if you want to introduce yourself, and then we'll wrap it up for the cable TV audience, and then pass it back to our special guest with any questions that you have, Cozy.
What's going on, everybody? I'm a former healthcare worker, fired for refusing the COVID vaccine. So this stuff now that John Delarm is mentioning is really angering me. It's bringing back all these memories. I just can't believe that in this day and age, 2026, that we are still fighting for our rights, that the government thinks that we are their slaves, because when you mandate a shot to a human being, you're telling them that your body belongs to me. Okay? And we are not slaves, and we're not going to put up with this. And this fuels me. All these conversations fuel me it empowers me to just fight harder, because I'm not going to stop until we sign a law. There's some kind of law that says from now on, you will never be able to mandate anything on any human being. I won't stop. It has awakened the beast in me. It has awakened a beast in everybody here that has been abused by this system. And we're going to win. We're not going to let down. So I just want to put that out there before we continue on. I just want to let you know, we will win this, because the truth is really on our side. Okay? They have nothing but lies. And look at this bait and switch tricks. I remember when they did that with the emergency use authorization. They approved it. These switcheroos, these games are done. We're not going to put up with it anymore. So thank you so much for coming on. Did we lose him? I think I don't. John, you still there?
No, it looks like he's back.
He's back.
I'm still
John,
here.
Yeah, John, I'm glad you came on here and to tell your story. And I want everybody to go see this documentary. And we'll be sharing the link. John will tell you where you can see it and all. But this is powerful, and it needs to be said, and you guys need to share this story. Okay, we're going to stop them, but it's all up to you guys to share these stories and demand freedom.
Really quick, John, where can people watch it? Just because we got a little over a minute left in the cable TV audience portion of the program. So where can people see the movie?
Right, so the documentary, if you go to just Google "duty to disobey" and then type in film.com, it'll pull up, and then once you click on that link, basically that's where you can buy the tickets. And then so you click on buy ticket, and then basically what you want to do is type in your state, right? So type the full state in, California, spell it out, whatever state you're in, and then a list will actually come up of the theaters or wherever they're playing them in that state. And then you just hit like more options, and then it'll pull the tickets up. You can buy tickets. And now if you don't want to purchase a ticket, if it's not in your state, you can also order a DVD, and they'll mail it out to you. I believe after the showing's over, they'll send it out. And the showing's the 30th of June this month.
Sounds good. Looking forward to it. Maybe we'll get a group of freedom fighters to come and watch that. So for the Brooklyn Free Speech audience, thank you for joining us. We are live every Saturday, 2:30. On Brooklyn Free Speech. Our live broadcast is Mondays at 8 p.m. via Cafecito Break. And we'll see you next time on Brooklyn Free Speech. Watch the full episode on Cafecito Break, X, and YouTube. Thank you. Passing it back to Cozy now for any questions that you have for John.
Yeah, no, I don't know where to start, but thank you for sharing that. So what's your current status right now? Like what is your plan, things that you're thinking about doing, or how are you currently maintaining yourself and, surviving, or whatever you want to share with us? We just want to know what does your path look like?
Right. Yeah. I appreciate the question. Yeah. Wow. So since I got kicked out of service illegally, I like to add that, I started a podcast, specifically so I can interview vaccine injured soldiers, soldiers that were kicked out over the vaccine. And it's basically to get the information out there for individuals to kind of wake up and understand what happened within the military, and not just the military, within, obviously the civilian sector as well. But that's what I've been doing for a very long time. But I'm also obviously an advocate for, the EUA products and trying to stop it actually pull it off the market because it definitely needs to. Accountability in the military is a very big subject for me, and anybody that was kicked out illegally, I think it's on their hearts to have accountability within the military, because there's a lot of issues currently with this Secretary of War and this whole new DOW thing going on. They're trying to, I guess, fix whatever happened in the past, right, from the last administration. But they're also trying to keep the institution from, I guess, crumbling or falling apart or making it look like they did something wrong. So there's a lot of good things they did, right? They stopped the flu vaccine, right? It's not mandatory no more. They also stopped the COVID vaccine, so that's not mandatory no more. Now, the other end of that, you'll see that the vaccine itself, they're still being available on military medical facilities. So what that actually tells you is they just stopped the mandate, right? There's the vaccine schedule and then the mandate. And so if it's on the schedule, those medical facilities can order it, they can hold it, and they can administer it. If it's a mandate, then the soldiers have to get it, right? And so how do we reverse that? Well, I'll tell you, it's a signature. So why are they stopping those two things? Because a lot of soldiers don't want to get any more vaccines. They don't want to get the, fake COVID vaccine. And the ones that got kicked out is probably, they say 8,700, but there's a lot more, right? They don't want to go back in. I think they have like 40 soldiers that returned to duty so far. That's a disgrace. Why? Because of these mandates. So they pulled them, but guess what? With a swipe of a pen, they could bring them right back. So they can get us all back in there, do a little signature, and bring them all back. And we're all in the same boat again. They didn't do anything, right? They're just pretending to do stuff.
Absolutely. And it's funny how you brought up accountability, right? And they teach military personnel about accountability and responsibility, right? That's your task. Like, you have to be accountable for your actions, And meanwhile, they're not being accountable for their actions. Our government is totally corrupt in terms of like the pharmaceutical influence. We all know that they're funding both the Democrats and the Republicans. So when a lot of people think it's just the previous administration, Trump was, Operation Warp Speed and, all of this stuff. So they're both, we need to hold both of them accountable, right? So it's a huge topic, and this has got to stop. And I don't know what it's going to take, but people need to, because I think there's enough people that are upset about this. They just have to have the bravery, the courage to say no, and to be willing to put everything on the line. Because if we can do it, right? If you can do it, if I can do it, and many others can do it, everybody can do it. And if we all stick together, they have nothing. They have no power. The only power they have is fear. And that's how they control us, out of fear. When I lost my job, I had a couple of $1,000s in my bank account. And, I had to think about that, right? I had to think about, like, wow, I have kids I'm raising. And I'm like, I'm going to lose my job right now. But, I just, prayed into myself and said, you know what? It is what it is. I said, God will open up doors. God will open up opportunities. You got to stand in your bravery, people. Stand in your courage. Stand for what you believe in. And you can never fail, because the right people will come near you. The right opportunities will come near you. And, you can't lose this way. So I just want to encourage everybody to stand in your faith and stand in your beliefs. You can never go wrong doing so.
Now, really quick, if you do have a question for our guest, you can leave it in the comments. Archie asked if we take questions. You're always welcome to leave any questions and comments out there, and we'll acknowledge them. Cafecito, you wanted to say something?
I wanted to ask about harms. Spend a little time talking about harms because it's a big subject, but I don't know where you were going to go with it. So if you want to ask your question first, Mark, that's fine.
I was going to ask about the the reinstatement with back pay was announced a while ago. Has anyone actually received the back pay? Not like it really makes up for it, because the psychological damage for, and the harm that was done to a lot of service members, the threats of people becoming homeless, I'm pretty sure that was a reality for a lot of service members that probably did end up being homeless, that dishonorable discharge does stick with you, where it's very difficult to find work because that you are looked upon a different way from any employer of really any industry when you have that on your record. So reinstatement with back pay or just back pay, can you tell us about that?
Yeah, actually, I think about a month ago, I just got my DD 149 through the BCMR process returned to me. So that's the process where, we're asking for relief for the wrongs that were done to us. And this all goes into the reinstatement process too, because their opinion, the DOW's opinion, if you guys fell off again, if you go back into service, you will get your back pay. So you basically have to do 2 more years of service. It used to be 3. I think they changed it to 2 now. So you basically have to sign another contract. They'll get you back pay. And so I was planning on being a first sergeant, which is a master sergeant, being a battery commander. We have batteries in artillery. Being a battery commander, a battery first sergeant, right? An advisor to my commander. And then I was going to retire. And so that was my plan. So when I requested my relief with my 149, I basically said, hey, I want to get promoted the master sergeant and retired as a master sergeant, because that's what I would have been. And then I said, I want my back pay, obviously, up to my retirement date. And then I want my back pay for my retirement up to, today, I guess. And then, which I don't think that's, unfair to ask. That's what I should have got if I completed my contract. And, basically, there's some other things I put in there. It was like, correct my records, fix, little minor things. Good conduct medal, which really is no big deal. It's whatever. I just put that in there because, it's owed to me. I don't really care about that. The biggest thing is, back pay, retirement, and really retirement's the biggest thing, to back pay. How the board viewed it and seen it, and what they said was, they basically said that if I go back into service, they'll look into those things. If I don't go back into service, they're going to grant me partial relief. And what partial relief is, correcting all my records. And so correcting your records is fine, but what they're going to do is remove all the COVID-19 stuff within my records. And when I do a GOMAR rebuttal and I say, hey, there's no approved vaccine in the United States, here's the documentation, here's the proof. Every first sergeant, every commander, every command sergeant major, every officer that read that and seen the documentation, seen the proof that what they were doing was illegal and they're breaking the law, is implementation. It should click in your head that, oh, what we're doing is illegal. Wow, I didn't know that. And then they should do something about it, because that's their job. That's what they get paid to do, is to keep us safe and make those decisions, right? And so anyways, what they want to do is remove those documentations so they can get rid of the crime. They're covering it up, right? We're going to pull all that out. And their opinion, which I was reading a little while ago, it basically says that I was kicked out over refusing the COVID-19 vaccine. And then there was a policy change, and now that allows me to go back in for back pay and, possible, next rank and, whatever. And so, but it's due to the policy change is why they're allowing us to come back in, not because they broke the law and mistreated us. It's because of a policy change. And so that's kind of what I'm seeing. And again, if I don't spend another 2 years of my life in service, for a bunch of stuff that I don't agree with right now, then I'm getting nothing. Now, partial relief is we're going to correct your records. They said that they're going to change my DD 214 to like time completed or service completed. So it'll still have the same date I got kicked out. It'll just say service completed. Yeah. And then getting kicked out, every commander said that I should get a other than honorable discharge. Right. And what that's going to do is that takes away your education.
1 second, John, you froze. If you can pause right there and repeat what you said.
Yeah, you're cutting in and out, John. I just I'll get to Archie's question in the meantime, because it's also related to back pay coincidentally, which was my question. But Archie asked, why is my quoted back pay having all these deductions for VA financial benefits and employment? Did they want me to be homeless for 4 years? And also, I've heard the phrase full back pay used by the Secretary of War and Vice President, doesn't seem to be what it is. If you want to continue with what you said and then answer what you were saying, John, and then answer the question, or however you want to do it.
Yeah. So, I was kind of saying that, I kind of lost my spot, I guess, but the full back pay, yeah, they're going to take all the taxes they possibly can out of it. And then there's a law basically, and the law is going to say, what is it? It's called offsets. So there's offsets. So if say I make, I would have made, $2,000 in the military, for 1 month, and the offsets would be, okay, how much did you make as a civilian for 1 month? Oh, you made $1,700. So the military's gonna say, oh, we owe you $300 for the month. So those are offsets, and so it's not full back pay. It's they're gonna take away whatever you made. Like I said, I was truck driving, so I'm making a good chunk of change. I had no other choice. Like what am I gonna do? I had like $5,000 of bills I got to pay every month. And then I just got kicked out of service. I lost my retirement. I'm not getting a paycheck no more. I lost my medical insurance. I couldn't even go to school while I was in service because they said, oh, you're flagged. You can't go to school. And I'm like, oh, okay, thanks. I was unable to do the process of leaving the military correctly. So I didn't go, do all my VA disability benefits. So there's stuff I have that is not service connected because I had to do it after the fact. And so, yeah, so all those things, they're going to offset all that. So there it is. And, there are soldiers that, got kicked out of service and are homeless, right? There's some that were homeless. So, it happens. I don't know if I answered all the questions or if I missed.
This is really unbelievable and so disgusting what they did to people. So disgusting. I'm sorry that you went through this, and anybody out there that has experienced similar situations. It's unbelievable. You're putting your life on the line, and this is how they treat you.
Now, the conspiracy theorist in me thinks, like, why would anybody who was discharged go back to the military? Like, I mean, yes, there are those that want to serve, obviously, but I would be suspicious of going back because it is the military and you're not an obedient sheep. So who knows where they're gonna send you, what's gonna happen to you? Are they gonna send you on the front lines if they go to war with Iran? Like what you know what I'm saying? Like, did that thought ever cross your mind? Or
I know service members that are back in service. So they did the reinstatement process. They got their back pay. They got promoted. They got to pick the job they wanted. They could change their career if they want. The individuals I know are all officers. And their thought process is, we're going to go inside the military and we're going to make a change from within the military, which is fine, great. But I find that very hard to do. And, if there's not accountability for these individuals that actually caused the crime and knew about it and kept doing it, then it's hard to go in and start trusting all these individuals once again. And, you got your lower level, like command teams at the company level, that may or may not have known. Okay, I understand. But if there's legit evidence, then they need to be held accountable. If I went and robbed a store with someone and just took a piece of gum, I'm going to get in trouble. I mean, that's the way life is. You're going to pay the price. But yeah, so, one of the individuals I know works for the reinstatement process. So he's actually part of that reinstatement team. But he was a big advocate for what we were doing and spreading information and getting the information out there. And now he's kind of silent because he's back in service. He has no choice. And he's just doing his job now, and he's trying to reinstate people. So he lost his advocacy. I don't know what he's doing behind the scenes or not, but he's definitely, quiet now, and he's just reinstating people the best he can. I know another individual that got promoted to a captain. So he got one rank up. He's going into, I believe, the Space Force, or I don't know. It's not the Space Force, but it's a program for space within the Army. But he's going into that. So he's at like a career course right now, captain's career course. He got his back pay. He got promoted. That's the duty position he wanted. And so he's getting that. So he's getting what he wants. Again, the problem is, you can't really speak out against your leadership. You can't speak out against the government because you will get in trouble. It was the same concept as individuals that decided to not take the flu shot after COVID thing, and then they were getting kicked out over the flu shot. Why? COVID was illegal. The flu shot is legal for them to mandate. Therefore, you had no, leg to stand on. So you got kicked out. So, that's kind of, it is good for if you want to serve your country and you really want to go back in and you want your back pay, maybe you're in a hard spot, a hard position. I completely understand. But as far as being a voice and making a difference, you may or may not have that opportunity.
I have a question. And I want to echo before I ask that question what Cozy just stated. Our hearts go out to any of the soldiers that have experienced this, whether it was because they left involuntarily or were involuntarily ushered out, or they stayed because of whatever reason. Because from what I understand, some of the soldiers that stayed didn't really feel good about staying. And that led to other harms on that side. And I would like to spend a little time right now talking about the harms that this has brought on. I would love to ask you about the morale. How has this impacted the morale in the military as you understand it from that moment where there were soldiers that didn't want it and then those soldiers that didn't want it but stayed? How did that create a separation? Has it added to the friction, or has it rebuilt in other ways? What have you been able to see or that you can tell us?
Yeah, this is like a giant, complicated question. I'll do my best. I've been out for a while. I know some individuals that are in, so I kind of hear what they're saying. Those are questions that we do talk about sometimes. So yeah, soldiers are really good at pretending everything's okay. I used to go to work and they'd be like, "Hey, good morning. How you doing?" I'm like, "Yeah, good morning." I'm like, I'm here again, whatever. So we're really good at pretending everything's fine, just moving forward. We're really good at, I twisted my ankle, but I'm going to go run 6 miles anyways and just tough it out. I'm not going, so we're really good at hiding things. So it is my opinion, right, that there's a lot of soldiers that are probably vaccine injured, right? You talk about myocarditis, pericarditis. I think Nicholas Holscher put out information saying X amount of soldiers are vaccine injured. There's a percentage on there. And, a lot of these individuals, they're probably not going to say anything. They're probably going to push forward and keep going, especially if they want to be in service, right? I do run into soldiers every now and then, and I talk to them and I say, "Hey, I have a podcast and I do this and I do that." "Oh, that's cool, man. I appreciate it. Yeah, I didn't get the vaccine until they, I really had to, and they made me, and I was about to get kicked out." And so, and obviously he's not going to say, "I hate the military." The military is a great, great organization. It really is. When it's working properly and the people in charge of it are lawfully, legally, doing what the military does. But this definitely destroyed the military from within. There's a soldier, right, that I know that I'm working with right now, but I was at Bliss with, and he, was with me for a long time. He didn't want to get the vaccine, and he finally said, "Hey, he was getting a lot of pushback from the command team. Da da da. He's a supply NCO, and he finally said, "Okay, I'm gonna go get it." He goes down, he gets the vaccine off post, right? The next day, he tells the commander, "Man, I don't feel good." So the commander's like, "Hey, just go home." He's like, "All right." So he goes to drive home. He passes out in his vehicle, right? I guess he was at like a stoplight or whatever, but he passes out. He wakes up in an ambulance, has all this stuff hooked up to him. This guy has over like 20 different diseases now. And this is back in, I believe, 21 when they happened. He's still messed up. And I want to give Dr. Bain a shout out. I don't know if you heard of Dr. Bain or not, but Dr. Bain, if you go to docintheloop.com, that's Dr. Bain. He's up in Chicago, but he works with a lady named Jen Dillon, and they're doing a protocol. And it's a frequency-based medicine. And I've actually got... I got with a bunch of individuals that I know, we donated money to Dr. Bain and this individual I'm talking about, and he's been on a protocol for a while. He's actually doing a lot better, so it's pretty interesting. But yeah, so, and I mean, these guys that get vaccine injured, you hear about like suicides, right? I know there's a chaplain I talked to, he was deployed, and he was saying that they told him, they said, "You're not going to be able to go home until you get vaccinated." And they told him they're going to court-martial him if he doesn't get vaccinated. And so he finally broke. He got vaccinated. I think it was like 10 days later. He had like some sort of heart issue. So now he has a pacemaker that he has to live with. They sent him back to Fort Bragg at the soldier, whatever unit they're transitioning unit or whatever. It's like the warrior, the injured soldier unit, whatever, the STU, I believe is what it's called. But they sent him down there, and they basically treated him like trash. They told him, "Your vaccine injury it's a mental issue. You're not really vaccine injured. It's all in your head." They actually removed documentation from his records. They made falsified records. They basically, kicked him out of service. They medboard him. He didn't get a retirement. He actually had a fight when he was kicked out to get his retirement. And so, yeah, a lot of this stuff is bad. Even the guy I was talking about before, after his vaccine injury, the same thing. He would go see a doctor because, the doctors do all their tests. They can't find anything wrong with you. They say, "Oh, it's just in your head. It's in your head." They sent this guy to mental health to get a mental health evaluation, and they were going to kick him out of service over mental health because he had a mental health disorder when he was actually legitimately vaccine injured. So there's a lot of individuals like that. There's a few times when the ambulance was called during PT hours. We'd be doing PT, physical training in the morning, and then all of a sudden the ambulance is coming by. People are running in here. "Oh, what happened? Oh, this individual." I know individuals that were saying, "Yeah, I've been having some weird chest pains and blah, blah, blah." And it's like, yeah, what is going on in the military? So I can't really speak and say, service members don't trust, their command team. Service members are feeling a certain way. But I can tell you those stories, and, you can kind of, put the pieces together and understand.
Thank you for answering that question. I'm seeing it in the chat also. I'll read this comment. "The suicide rate is extremely high for our veterans. I know of 2 young people who committed suicide off base while still in service, and I don't know if it was related or it was. I do not have any awareness if this had anything to do with also having to accept the jab. If it further complicated matters, but I don't leave that out to be part of the puzzle. And to me, what's devastating, there's so many layers of devastating, terrible news that we're having a discussion about. We're having the people like yourself that gave so much of your tenure to serving, and then you're done this. You and everyone is done dirty in this ridiculous way by, like, they speak so much about the soldiers and honoring the soldiers and the brave men and women who sacrificed their lives for us, but then We hear about the atrocities that happen with veterans and the care they don't get. And now we're hearing about the terrible things that are happening, like your story, and then the young people that are just coming in with hopes of serving for years. I can tell you that I also know of another young person that had hopes to serve in the military for years. As soon as his contract was out, he ended it. He left. He was very upset. He stayed, but didn't want to get the job. And the only reason he stayed is because he didn't want to be dishonorably discharged. So again, levels of coercion here. Where, like, when we're looking at this scheme, not a scheme, when we're looking at the big picture, how and where do you start pointing fingers? This one has this to blame. This one has a little accountability. This one had this position and still asked us to do it. Like, how does one even reconcile? Where do you even start with like pinpointing who is responsible for what?
Yeah, that's a great question. I put a lot of thought into this. I mean, it's a disaster. But the way I see it is, you make a team, basically that will take in, documentation and evidence. And they have a reinstatement team, right? Task force is what they call it. And so you make a task force that will take in this evidence. I have 2 binders about this thick. I think they're 3-inch binders full of evidence. That shows that I showed, of at least 20 people there was a crime going on, and I showed them undeniable evidence what was going on. And so there should be a task force where I can take my evidence and turn it in, and they can see, who knew that the law is being violated, and they start there. Now, if there's no evidence and you have no proof that the command team had no idea what was going on, then obviously we can't just start punishing people because they're just doing their job. But once you become a whistleblower and you say, hey, look at this, the CDC website, it's a government website, CDC website says there's no approved vaccine in the United States. Hey, look at this law, right? From Cornell, .law or whatever. It says, U.S. Code 1107 Alpha. You can't give soldiers an EUA product. Okay, well, the product's EUA, the law says you can't do this, so you're breaking the law. When somebody sees those 2 paperworks and they don't put it together and they just choose the institution over the Constitution, right? And they're just choosing to violate the law and keep doing what they're doing to soldiers, right? That's illegal, right? Now they're complicit in a crime. And that's what I'm talking about. And that's where we need to start. You can start from the bottom and work your way up. You could start from the top and work your way down because, General Austin did his thing. The Secretary of Health, Carrie Delarm, wrote her memo. And then you can keep working down or you can work up. I think either way, it doesn't matter. But if there's legit evidence that they violated a crime and they saw that information, now they need to be held accountable, in a court of law, whether it's a court martial or under the UCMJ, and they need to prove that they're innocent. And if they get their retirement taken, then so be it. If they get, maybe they just get an early retirement, cool, good for you. Maybe they, get something, but you don't get away, free. Like this is the United States, and we're supposed to go around and just do all these crimes and everybody's cool with it? No, I don't think so.
I got one last question on my end. You said you did trucking for a couple of years. You were doing the civilian life. Trucking is a pretty good living. I work for a veteran-owned company, and all the trucking companies love hiring military guys because they have the mental toughness to do this job. But what, you could have just, chose a different career path and focused on that and not been bothered. And I'm going to do a name pun here, but what made John Delarm sound the alarm here and and going and basically you're taking on the military in a sense, which is, you got to have a big set of balls for that, because you got to worry about, it is the military that you're basically exposing here, and you have the different evidence, and you're pointing out the commanders knew, and they had you sign the form and all these other things. So what made you just say that you're going to go and speak out instead of just moving on and just going into civilian life and regular civilian life without being a whistleblower, so to speak?
Yeah, that's a tough question. Wow.
It's an
Yeah, I
easy
don't know.
question. It's an easy question. I was gonna curse, but I won't. He's an effing man.
Yeah.
That's why. He's an effing man.
Yeah.
That's what men do. Congratulations, John.
Thank you. The military itself, from when you go into basic combat training, I was a drill sergeant. We preach in the Army, everybody has their own values, but in the Army, you have the Army values, and you have the warrior ethos, and you have all these things that you're supposed to live by, and what kind of person you're supposed to be. You become a non-commissioned officer. You have the creed of a non-commissioned officer. You're supposed to live by those things. When I was in the military, I learned these things, and I wanted to do my best, and I wanted to live these things. I've always tried to do what's right, period. Doesn't matter what the outcome is, right? And so as a leader in the military, you have to do what's right, regardless of, whoever's telling you not to. Oh, do the wrong thing. You do the hard right, and you do what's right, period. And it doesn't matter what the outcome is. And so, being an NCO and caring about soldiers and wanting to take care of soldiers, you want them healthy, and you want them ready to deploy and engage anytime they need to. And, just because I'm out of service doesn't mean you stop serving, right? You're still serving in service. I still care about soldiers, right? I still care about mankind. Like, I don't want people to get this vaccine. We know what happens when you get it, right? The possible outcomes. And we know there's things that we don't know about, will happen to you, down the road. But if you care about, mankind, and you actually care about anything, this is the fight that you should be in, period. And so that's why I chose to keep fighting, keep speaking, because I actually care about soldiers. I actually care about, everybody. I don't care if they're Democrat, if they're Republican. Like, they shouldn't be getting this vaccine. I don't care, if they identify 36 or 37 different sexes. They, whatever, dude. Just don't mistreat my children, and we're cool. That's it. And I think I just want everybody to be healthy and safe, and it's just, that's why I do what I do.
And I wanted to ask you a question. You mentioned the anthrax vaccine. I didn't know that they were still mandating it, because I thought that back then, when it first came out during the Gulf War, I thought they had stopped it and I thought that's why the whole EU thing happened, because of the anthrax. I have to look back, because I'm just trying to remember. Maybe you'll correct me. But I thought that the whole scandal with Gulf War syndrome, and it was suspected to be caused by the anthrax vaccine. I thought they had stopped mandating it, but I guess I was wrong.
Yeah. So anthrax, from what I did my research on, because there's a lot of comparisons there, was an IND, was an investigational new drug. And so, which was actually a law at the time. So you can't force soldiers to take an investigational new drug. That was 1107, US 1010 US code 1107. Right. And so they were getting these soldiers to take this IND, investigational new drug. And the ones that didn't take it, obviously, they got kicked out of service, whatever happened to them. They went to court, right? And they won their lawsuit, right? And they got a bunch of stuff in Congress to get pushed down, and whatever happened. And so out of that came 1107 Alpha, which is the emergency use authorization. So first it was the IND, then it was the EUA. And so that came from that. But basically the anthrax, they, I guess they changed the formula a little bit, and they pushed it through the process, and then all of a sudden it's good to go and approved. And now we're still giving it to soldiers.
Wow. See, that's what I thought. So, okay. So where I understood is that's where that law came from, that you can't force a experimental vaccine on the military. But then, like you said, they probably finagled it, changed up the recipe a little bit, and here you go, a brand new product. It's disgusting. But we're gonna stop it, right, John? We're gonna stop it. This is it.
Yeah.
We're calling you all you listening. Share this. Let everybody know that you have to stand your ground. There's too many of us, and if we just stand our ground, they will fail. And I'll keep repeating this until you guys have the balls to stand up and do it. That's it. There's less of them than there are of us. So come on.
And since you mentioned that, I want to say too, you know, the documentary is really important. It's gonna tell a bunch of stories, kind of like mine, personal, but there's, you know, I don't know how many people on there, but I think there's over 10. So there are a bunch of different stories, but really, like, you have a duty to disobey, and that's what it's about, is disobeying an unlawful or illegal order. They have a duty to do that. And you know, you mentioned the civilian sector too, and they need to stand up and fight, because they need to understand that if the military would have done its job and disobeyed an unlawful illegal order, this would have never trickled down into the civilian sector. So if you're a civilian and you know someone that's vaccine injured, you know someone that died from the vaccine, you're vaccine injured, you're suffering. The reality is, if the military would have said, no, we're not doing this, it's illegal, this shit would have never happened to anybody.
And you're right. And I want to add to that, and the same thing with the healthcare workers, right? Because when I was a healthcare worker, people were saying, I'm not getting that shot. I'm not getting that shot. So I was feeling, okay, great. I have a team here. We're going to fight this. And then when it came down to the mandates, they lost their balls. They said, oh yeah, but I'm going to lose my job. I'm like, so what? If we all stand our ground, I said, they will not be able to do this. And then one at a time till it was only 2 remaining, me and this other girl. And she almost went in, and I grabbed her. I said, don't do it. You don't want to do it. Just stand your ground. So we both were fired. But just to go and show you, if the healthcare workers stood up and said no, it would have never been trickled down, just like the military. So, you know, we have a big responsibility, right? As leaders, because you are a leader, right? When you're in the military, you are a leader. You're a healthcare worker, you are a leader. So if your leaders are failing or just falling, right? What's going to happen to the civilians? We're not protecting the civilians. We're not protecting our common man. And it's a shame. It's a shame. But thank you, John, for doing what you needed to do. And we're praising you for doing that. For not just being a man, but in your role. Like, I love it. Duty to disobey. I love that phrase. I think it's a powerful phrase. And you all have a duty to disobey unlawful, illegal orders.
And one of the ways that we can be supportive for those who are listening right now or are listening later is go check out this film, buy a ticket, support this initiative that has been created, unfortunately, from this pain point. This is when we can create something, and telling stories when the government ain't listening is one of the most beneficial ways that we can get a story across. Just like you can have a professor teach hours and hours and hours, and then one person releases a song about this topic and everybody gets it in that one song. The good thing about this moment is we've reached the threshold where humans cannot look back. And there is that rebelliousness in the air. But to your point, John, I remember thinking back then, well, surely the military is going to stand down on this. And, well, surely someone in the medical industry is just going to stand down. I mean, they did, but I mean, at that moment, when Cozy was saying when it mattered, when we were all being coerced, it was like, no, we're going to stand tall. And at one point I was naively thinking that the police would say no. Like, I was looking for the people who are in leadership roles. And none of that happened. And for those of you who are thinking and say, why are they still talking about COVID? Because it's still affecting people's lives today in so many unfortunate ways. physical health, mental health, financial. What have we, John, as we are winding down, are there other things that we haven't mentioned that you would like to share with us? And then also plug in again where people can see this film.
Yeah. So yeah, if you want to watch the film, go to just search engine Duty to Disobey film. It'll pop up, and then you click on there, and then buy tickets, and then you just make sure you type in your state you live in. Type in the full state, don't abbreviate it, and then click more next to your state, and then basically it'll say buy tickets. You buy the ticket. You can buy a DVD. You can also donate if that's what you want to do. But there's places all over the United States where you can go watch this documentary, and it's important because I think it's going to be very educational. It's going to be an eye opener to a lot of individuals because I haven't watched the documentary, so I have high hopes that I think each person on there has like 5 minutes. There's so many people speaking on there. But it was an EUA product, pushed down all the way to everybody in, the civilian sector as well as the EUA product. So a lot of individuals don't even know that. What the military went through during that whole process, there's so much coercion. We could talk a little bit about the coercion, but, if you weren't vaccinated, you had to get a nasal swab at least twice a week to make sure that you weren't vaccinated. You couldn't enter a military facility unless you were checked. You were given separate formations. You might have had to come in earlier than everybody else. You might have had to stay in a little bit later than everybody else. Some individuals were just getting, smoked, which is basically, push-ups or, sit-ups, some sort of exercise as a punishment. Individuals were having formations at vaccine sites. And if they didn't get the vaccine, they would go on a 6-mile run. Soldiers were given extra duty, so they would have to stay late and do dumb stuff like pick weeds or whatever they wanted them to do, or they would get put on details, which are like we got a grass cutting detail today. We'll send that guy that's not vaccinated. Okay, go over there, go do that.
Evil, so evil.
Soldiers weren't.
Pisses me off.
Yeah.
Pisses me off.
Yeah, you weren't allowed to go to the promotion board. If you were at E4 trying to make E5, they wouldn't send you to the promotion board because you weren't vaccinated. If you were going to be on a promotion list, they would flag you and you could no longer get promoted.
And what happens if you walk off the job? Like, you can't just walk off, right? Like I always hear about, like, you get arrested. Is that what really happens? Like, they'll just grab you and throw you into prison?
Well, okay, you want to talk about walking off the job? So Senior Airman Lance Castle basically didn't get vaccinated, and then his command team basically they removed him from his section, put him in a different section, and then sent him over there for a while. And this happens too. You get they change your duty position, right? So he went over there, and then the mandate got rescinded. They sent him back to his original section. And now he did a really good job over there, but when his NCOR came in, they gave him a bad review. And he's like, why am I getting a bad review? And so he had to go find out why. Well, he didn't do anything wrong, so they had to fix it. But they were trying to falsify documents, and they were trying to get this guy in trouble by getting him write-ups for missing an appointment or just dumb little stuff. And so he was being attacked literally every day he'd go into work. So he stopped going to work. He just went home. He's like, I can't go to work because they're falsifying evidence. They're attacking me. They're doing this. They're doing that. So his commander basically scheduled an appointment. It's a super long story, but I'm making it super short. His commander scheduled an appointment for him to come on post and, sit down and talk with everybody. It's a mental health appointment. And so he's like, okay, he agreed to it. He went to go in to this appointment, and they arrested him at the gate.
Wow.
So he was arrested. And and then what happened was, so they took him and they took him, they stripped him down naked, right? and they basically, they handcuffed him to a chair, stripped him down naked, and then, they basically arrested him, and then they put him in confinement. So he was in pretrial confinement. And so as he's in pretrial confinement, right, he had a bunch of medications he was on. So he couldn't get his medication. They wouldn't get it for him. And then so he was basically, whatever mental health medication he was on. So he's having headaches, the light's bothering him. So he's laying on his little bed or whatever he has in his confinement cell. He throws the blanket over his head and he's just laying there trying to keep the light out of his eyes, got a headache. And they're basically saying, oh, you can't be laying down like that. You need to get up. You're not complying. And so what these individuals did was they did a cell extraction. And this is all because he didn't get vaccinated. They did a cell extraction. They go in, they pull him out of his cell. I think it was like 6 guys. They pull him out of his cell, right? They got him in a chokehold, right? And then they rip him out of his cell. They tore this guy's like rotator cuff or something, and something else, pulling him out of this cell, and he didn't even do anything wrong. And guess what?
Are these people
when they
in
did the
prison?
court martial?
Yeah.
The cell extraction, it was an illegal cell extraction. It was unlawful because they didn't do it properly. The people that did the cell extraction, they weren't even trained to do the cell extraction. And it's amazing that all this stuff happened to him. But yeah, that is a valid scenario.
Can I ask you, were these people ever punished for doing this, or they just let them, this is just normal behavior?
No, you'd be so amazed how criminal this whole, he's in the Air Force. He was at Cannon Air Force Base, Clovis, New Mexico. You would be surprised how criminal this was. During his trial, his court martial, he had already got a punishment under UCMJ. That was one of the charges. The judge is like, why are you giving him another punishment for something he was already punished for? And the commander's like, well, I don't know. And then there was a charge where when I said he was sitting in a chair stripped naked, one of the, I don't know if they're part of the, MPs or whatever they are, whatever the detail was, he had a bum knee. So this guy, his knee, like, I guess, displaced or something, and he fell. And so one of the charges was that Lance Castle kicked this guy in the knee and dislocated his knee. That was a charge that they charged him with. And so they brought that guy, I think his name is Senior Airman Kelly. They brought him on the stand and they said, hey, did Lance Castle kick you? And he goes, no, he didn't even touch me. He's like, I just have a bum knee and basically sometimes it dislocates.
Wow.
And so they charged him for that. There was another charge where they said Lance Castle called his commander a domestic terrorist or a domestic threat. And so he was charged for that. And there were first sergeants and other individuals inside that room that agreed and said, yes, he said that. Well, what Lance was doing was recording everything he could. So he had the recording of that day of the conversation, played it in court, and they never said that once. So they falsified a charge to get this individual arrested. And
perjured the court, apparently.
So,
yeah,
and committed perjury.
So, but there you go, perjury, 100%.
But these people get in trouble, or no? They're off the hook too. I mean, they could just do whatever they want.
No. Yeah, no, they're still running around, getting promoted, doing their military
so
thing.
My message to the world: just don't go to the military. That's it. They want to act like that, and I'm not talking for you, John. Yeah. I'm not talking for you. I'm speaking for myself. Yeah. Young men, don't go to the military, because if you happen to want to do something different or think about doing something else, or you're not agreeing with something, this can happen to you. And I'm not speaking for John. I'm speaking for myself. I have no problem saying it.
It seems like they have the attitude where they own you.
I wouldn't make a good soldier. I just wouldn't.
It's a great organization, but what happened was the law was violated, and those few of us, right, that found out and were whistleblowing and reporting and fighting back, initially, like, I thought I was one of the only ones at Fort Bliss because I was all by myself in my own battalion, own brigade that was actually pushing back. And there's individuals that were getting kicked out for the same thing, maybe 10 of them, but they weren't pushing back. They weren't fighting back. They were just like, yeah, we're not doing this. We're getting kicked out, whatever. And so I thought I was like alone. And so you are alone until, we got kicked out and we started seeing each other and talking to each other. But everybody, I was a sergeant first class, so I was pretty decently high up there as far as the enlisted side goes. So I knew the sergeant major. I knew, all the first sergeants. I could talk to anybody I want. I was perfectly fine. I can pretty much say whatever I want and not get in trouble. And I knew my job, so that kind of helped out too. But, they act like they're your friends, and then they turn their back on you, and then they write, kick them out with other than honorable. Like, okay, thanks, man. I thought we were just talking the other day. And I told all these individuals that they're violating the law, and they're just like, yeah, whatever. My sergeant major is sitting there like, he's like, there's so much going on. I don't have time to look at the information and see what's going on. And there's all this disinformation out there and whatever. Look at all this paperwork on my, just pissed off about, whatever's going on. And it's just like, dude, you're breaking the law, bro. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Like,
it's so sad.
Yeah, that was that.
It's heartbreaking to hear these stories,
Good on you for having that courage despite all that chaos and coercion that you were experiencing. Now, at the present moment, as you look back, and I mean, you're still in the situation, being affected by it. If you had the power to change some things, what would you like to see be done? What immediately to start resolving this, if you had that magic to do that?
Yeah, like I said, I think the only way forward and the only way to rebuild the trust, with the rest of society and the military itself, even within the military, is to have accountability. And a lot of individuals see accountability differently than me. One individual that I was talking to, thinks accountability is, the back pay and the reinstatement. And I'm like, that's called relief. But okay, that's your opinion of accountability. I guess that's good for you. Some individuals think accountability is holding the top brass, accountable for what they did, which is understandable. I get it. But there's a lot of individuals within the entire, chain of command, that did violate the law and knew what they were doing. And I think holding those like individuals accountable is going to fix a lot of the issues, because if we don't have a legit accountability in the military, we're not going to rebuild the trust. It's never going to happen. This is going to happen again, right? You mentioned anthrax, or we did. It happened during anthrax. And then what happened? I don't know how long, and maybe 20 years later, whatever it is, now we have COVID. Right? Okay, 20 more years from now, if we have no accountability, this is going to be forgotten in history, right? And we're just going to be doing our job, and all of a sudden we're going to have another thing, and it's going to be twice as bad as this, because they're just going to keep getting away with it. If they have a fall guy at the top, that's it. Everybody else is good. That's not enough. We need a clean house. We need to take care of it. And I'm not saying everybody needs to lose a retirement. I'm saying maybe they need to get a forced retirement. Maybe they need to get knocked down a rank or two. Maybe, whatever the punishment is, only if there's proof that they legitimately knew that there was undeniable proof shown to them that they're violating the law, because then they should have did something.
Yeah, you're totally right. I totally agree with you. Everybody needs to be held accountable, because if everybody does, and it's not just one fall guy, then people will take their job very seriously, and they will respect the law, and will be willing to stand up for unlawful acts. And I personally will be a little more extreme about this. And if you break that law, you should go to prison. That's it. And especially the people on top, life in prison. You screwed up people's lives. You injured people, indirectly injured. People have died. People have lost their homes. People have become homeless. You're going to jail for the rest of your life. That's how I feel. I don't care if people think that's extreme. It's extreme to make us lose our jobs over this, where people are doing their jobs, doing what they're told, and being great human beings, and you're going to ruin their lives. We should ruin your life too. So Dr. Fauci, he's off the hook, right? He's just going to, ride into the sunset. He needs life in prison. He doesn't have a lot more years in life, but his rest of his life should be in prison.
Yeah. And see, I share your aggressiveness and your, the way you're treating it, but this is why when I did the military accountability PDF document I put together, this is why I used AI as a live scenario for the punishments for commanders, first sergeants, and command sergeant majors, because I would have a lot of what you're saying in there, to include like hanging. Like, these individuals deserve, like, the death penalty. Like, there's certain individuals that do at the top. But again, I want to make it as realistic as possible. I want to try and keep my emotions and my actual opinions out of it, because I think it's important to try and put something together that is realistic, that everybody can jump on and agree with.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We're being, we're speaking because we're angry, but, absolutely. Like, I think that something should happen, like whether it's, I'm not going to make the charges, but, something big, like lose your retirement, something. If you knew when you were a part of it, hey, you need to suffer.
I'm reminded of George Carlin's stand-up where he says, "Bring back public executions," and like put them on pay-per-view, so that would be the case for somebody like Fauci. But I'm gonna start the final thoughts off. I guess to start wrapping things up here. Many of you have probably seen this on social media at one point or another. There's a bunch of these social scientific experiments over the years. I remember one from the 60s or the 70s where they brought people in with a doctor, and they have to push a button and it's going to electrocute somebody in the other room. And the doctor tells them to do it, so they do it. And then as it progresses, they increase the voltage. No one is actually being hurt, but they don't know that. And they're hearing screams in the other room, "Please stop," and all that. And they continue to press the button. The vast majority, I don't know if it was 70% or 80%, what the exact number is, the majority of people continue to obey the person in a position of authority, the doctor that just told them, "It's okay, it's an experiment, keep pressing it," even though people are suffering in the other room. That's where you have to realize that doing what's right is more important than obeying. And I said it at the top of the program, for the nurses that were putting on people on ventilators, even though they knew they were killing people, the doctors that were giving people the vaccine, even though they knew the side effects and they knew it was BS, but they were getting a paycheck. And I use the analogy of Nazis, where Nazis say they're just following orders. Just following orders is not okay. You have a duty to disobey, as the movie title says, no matter whether it's the military, whether you're a nurse, whether you're a police officer, whether you're a doctor, whatever the case may be. If it's the wrong thing to do, don't do it. The other scientific experiment is people agreeing with the masses, even when it's wrong. I'm not going to get into all that. I'm sure you guys have seen it before. All different types of social experiments. The majority of people are sheep. The people on this show are not sheep. Our viewers are not sheep. And we need more lions, not sheep, leading the pack, because once you start putting the information out there, you start waking more people up. You start turning more sheep into lions. So with that being said, I'll pass it back over to John with any other final thoughts, anything else he wants to add about his documentary, and we'll go across the board with final thoughts.
Yeah, first, I appreciate being on here. If you guys need me back, I'd love to come back, and I got a lot more knowledge, I think, in here. But yeah, go watch the documentary Duty to Disobey. Again, dutytodisobeyfilm.com. Get your tickets. Again, you're going to learn something. It'll be educational, and it was really criminal what happened within the military ranks, and there's a lot of horrifying stories. And I didn't watch the documentary. I'll see it on the 30th. I'll be in Cleveland, Ohio. If anybody's interested, go up there. It's going to be a lot of individuals up there having a good time. We're doing a Q&A session down there as well, so it won't just be the documentary and leave. We'll be hanging out for at least a few hours, and I think I'll be down there for like 3 days, so it'll be pretty cool. I brought up Dr. Bain, so go to docintheloop.com. He is helping individuals that are vaccine injured. And there is some good results from this. They actually have data that it's helping in clearing some of the spike. So it seems good. Check it out. And then the last thing I want to say is, everybody wants to be a hero until there's hero shit to do. And then it's like they're gone. So
I love it.
as we're doing this, right, now is the time to be a hero. A hero isn't just somebody that goes in the battle and goes to war and does all this shit, for their country and then comes home. Like, yeah, we're veterans. Like, I deployed Iraq, 2006 to 2008. Okay. Oh, you're a hero. Okay, cool. Like, whatever, man. Like, a hero is someone that basically stands up, does the right thing when everybody else is doing the wrong thing, and just sticks to it and doesn't and turn their back on their country and their people. Right. So again, everybody wants to be a hero till it's hero shit to do. And then what happened? All these veterans, all these service members did the wrong thing. And I'm not calling the ones out that didn't know what was going on. I'm calling the ones out that did know what was going on and chose to be a coward. And and this goes for everybody in the civilian population too, right? Be a hero. All you gotta do is the right thing. Stand up for what you believe in, and don't listen to the BS from everybody else, right? If you know it's illegal, then stand up and do the right thing. That's all I got.
Love it, man. I love that quote. I'm going to start using that. Everybody wants to be a hero till there's hero shit to do. I love it. Love it. Listen, you guys go check out Duty to Disobey. Buy a ticket for somebody. Give that as a gift. Bring one of your stupid friends too. Somebody who doesn't really know about this stuff. Bring them along and, show them the video. Maybe we could unbrainwash them, kind of partially joking.
Yeah, just tell them it's a military movie. Don't tell them the details, and they'll go and watch it.
No, I'm totally kidding.
If they're sheep.
Totally kidding. Bring your mom. Bring a friend. Bring a girlfriend. Bring whoever you think can benefit from this movie. This is going to be a powerful movie. I know that. I'm going to go check it out myself. So yeah, tell everybody about this, because movies like this, the effort that was put behind this, can help change the world for a better place. And I'm not just saying that. These are going to be personal experiences. And, we got to promote these videos, and you definitely need to support this video. Even if you don't go, buy the ticket just to support the film.
Or buy the DVD, like John said. Cafecito.
No, I didn't know if I cut Cozy off.
You didn't cut me off. Because you would hear from it. Go ahead.
John, thank you for sharing some time with us today. And of course, we would love to have you back and share. This is unfortunately, the subject is not going to go away, and it's not going to be remedied overnight. So we do need to stay updated as our audience understands that medical freedom is top priority for us, and anything that falls under that and protecting our rights and constitution is things that we care about this show discussing. I want to say thank you to you and all of the courageous men and women out there in the military who stood your ground and are standing your ground in the ways that you do so. Thank you for being our heroes in this dark, dark time when people are learning the true horrors of the government. But again, I do want to preface that, which is what you've been saying, John, that just because the government does horrible things, or the people in health or military do horrible things, that doesn't mean that everybody that works in those settings are not good people. We're talking about bad apples are everywhere, and there will be bad apples that will follow the money or just great order following, but not necessarily standing up for their duty to uphold and protect the Constitution and protect the Americans. Have I left anything out before we wind down? So, John, so briefly, the film Trained to Follow Orders, Sworn to Defend the Constitution, during the COVID-19, U.S. service members were given orders that many believed were unlawful, and they were told that careers depended on that compliance. As you have heard today, some of these very unfortunate stories of what people went through who didn't comply and how they were treated, almost like they were pets. This is ridiculous. This is not how we treat men and women who are putting their lives down to protect us. Some obeyed, others refused, but pretty much all of them paid a price. So one of the ways that we could do is support this film, Duty to Disobey. What I will do is on any social media site that this interview appears, including our website home, all the links will be there, including the link that where you can go and click and buy your tickets for the June 30th premiere. Is that correct, right? June 30th?
Yep, that's correct.
All right. And
we're showing in Washington on the 10th.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Yes. Oh, we are aware of that. And also want to say thank you to CHD because they are such a force out there. We love them and respect for the lions that they are for stepping in and filling that void and upholding medical freedom, not just for the children, but extending it out to all of us, right? Yeah, guys, thank you. Love you. John, thank you. Sending prayers to you. I hope that justice can be served in a rapid way. And for everyone who's tuning in, thank you for connecting with Cafecito Break. We are live Mondays, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. And be sure to be looking at our social media as we will be posting this show and clips of it as soon as we can. Thank you, guys. This has been Rosangel Pérez, Mark, Cozy, and John with talking about the duty to disobey. Don't forget to go check it out, guys. All right, everyone. We're signing off. June 30th. Check it out. Duty to Disobey, a CHD film. Love you guys.